The views on a Breath of Fresh Air podcast reflects the parties involved, and we encourage you all to use it as a conversational tool that will lead to personal studies of your own.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Welcome to a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. Here with your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz Gay. As a young person, Christianity can be so foggy, like smoke in the mirrors and so unclear. But we're here to bring you a breath of fresh air.
All right, make sure everybody's in place. We have a big battle ahead of us. We need to make sure we are on one accord. We have the men of Gaza present, the men of Ekron present, but Lord King Achish, I must ask you, what are these Hebrews doing here?
Well, is it not David, the servant of Saul, the king of Israel, who has been here with me all these days, or has it even been years? And to this day, I have found no fault in him since he is defected to me.
Your Highness, respectfully, tell him to go back to whatever city that you've given him. He cannot go to war with us. You think we're going with him and we're on one accord, but mid-battle, he might turn on us and become our adversary. Think about it. What better way for him to reconcile with his master than to give them our heads? Is this not David, the great warrior of Israel, of whom they sang songs and made dances, saying, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s? Send this man back to Ziklag.
It's wartime. The battleground is set, the Israelites versus the Philistines, a rift that goes back centuries. However, this war is different. The champion of God is actually on the side of God's enemies. Will David actually follow through and fight his own people? This episode, we will discuss the actions of David and his men surrounding this particular war. As always, be blessed and enjoy. All right, welcome back to another episode of a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. My name is Earl Roberts.
And my name is Nakhaz Gay.
And I feel like it should be like, and we're a
Breath of fresh air. we still gotta
figure that part out.
we still gotta iron out the kinks.
Yeah, but hey, we definitely appreciate everyone for tuning in. I just like everyone to just do us a favor. Like, if you enjoy our content, share it with a friend. That's a simple ask. Just share it with a friend. If everyone could just share the podcast with one person, we can grow this thing. And I'm not even saying if we're blessing you, if the Holy Spirit is blessing you through listening to us, and if you gain some knowledge through the Holy Spirit, because it's not just me and Nakhaz, it's just really the Holy Spirit working and using us as vessels to bless others. So definitely, if you're enjoying what we're doing, our ministry here, definitely share it. We definitely do appreciate the comments and the likes on YouTube and on the streaming platforms, and follow us on Instagram. I know, definitely trying to grow our Instagram page. And man, this is episode 95. Woo! Like, we're coming up on that century mark. We got some plans for that, so stay tuned. But yeah, man, we definitely appreciate all of our listeners, all of our weekly listeners, all of our monthly listeners, all of our yearly listeners. Like, we just appreciate people who listen. So if this is your very first time listening, hopefully you enjoy, hopefully you are blessed. And definitely go back and check out our previous content. Right now we're in First Samuel, but we started off in Genesis. So, hey, like I said, you got 94 other episodes to check out. So definitely go back and check them out. Got something to say?
Yeah, no, and shout out to everyone that listens, obviously. And shout out to everybody that shares it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's actually, I don't know, like, I feel pretty inspired sometimes, man. No, I feel inspired when people...
No, I definitely do.
Yeah, no, definitely when people come reach out to me, especially when it's friends of mine, right? Because I don't. That's just how I am with my art, bro. I don't push my art. I think like when I first started doing music, I used to be in people's DMs and stuff like that. But other than that, if you tell me you want a notification, I'll notify you. But other than that, I put it out. If you want it, take it. You know what I'm saying? But I don't push it down people's throats. But it is inspiring when people, especially people who I least expect to listen to the pod, listen to it. And it's also inspiring when people share their story and how much they enjoy it or how it helps them. You know, that's a blessing to me.
That's a big blessing. And that point kind of ties into like the weekly thought that just came to my mind. And it kind of ties in what we were talking about yesterday afternoon and part of today. Obviously off pod. And then it kind of even is going to tie into like the story we're going to get into. But my thought is like, don't be afraid to be a Christian. Because, I mean, like we were talking about it, like, man, if you, how do I say this? If you encounter a Muslim, if you encounter a Hindu, if you encounter a Buddhist, 9 times out of 10, they're unapologetically who they are.
Right.
You don't see a Hindu trying to not worship their, like, go in their temples and do that kind of stuff. A Muslim, they will hit you with the Quran. Well, you know what I'm saying, but like they will like quote the Quran to you. They will say, you know, this ain't that, this and the third. They will like Ramadan, they ain't eating. Like they are unapologetically Muslims. And that's cool. But why it's so interesting when you get the Christians, we get timid. And I'm talking about myself sometimes too, not like no lie. Like I'm just developing and working on this muscle, so to speak, in the last, even through the pod. But you Christians, we're timid to talk about God. We're timid to be a Christian. We always feel like we should be the ones fitting in with the world, whereas the world doesn't fit in with us. And again, like Kazi said, like respect to the people who actually share the podcast. Because I mean, at that point in time too, like you're on your journey. And it takes a great faith to share something religious that you actually enjoy, because it's not the norm. And it isn't cool, quote unquote, to talk about God. It isn't cool to discuss these kind of things, but it's so super important. And we shouldn't be hiding our faith to fit in with others. We shouldn't be hiding our faith to blend in with the crowd. We shouldn't be hiding our faith to be cool. So, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of like my encouragement to everyone. Like, don't be scared to be a Christian. Don't like be unapologetically Christian. Like one time me and Kazi went to Sabbath dinner with a friend, and it was like this funny thing that ended up like came out of the conversation. We were talking about all kind of stuff, but you know, it was Sabbath up. It was like Christ for life.
I remember that. That was a good conversation too, because I wasn't really that strong in my knowledge, but I had the passion. You know what I'm saying? And so our friend, they were kind of challenging some of our beliefs, but we all share the same denomination, right? But he wanted to understand whether I feel this way because of my knowledge or because my parents, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know what circumstances will I compromise these beliefs and stuff like that. I just end up saying Christ for life, you know what I'm saying? Whenever you ask me, it's going to be Christ, you know what I'm saying? For the rest of my life, you know?
But yeah, it's super, like it's funny and all, right? But like, think about like how many times we would bend to that pressure in an unfamiliar circumstance. Like you're in an environment you know you shouldn't be in. Like someone offers you something that you know you probably shouldn't partake in, and offer the same cool. You're like, I'll do it, and you feel the Holy Spirit tugging at you. Because I've been in this predicament several times. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, be unapologetically Christian, man. Like be like. Let your faith, let your love for God shine through. We are called to be the salt of the earth. For everyone who has tasted unseasoned food before, you know
how important
salt is. I mean, like, it's like you hear quotes like that, you're like, oh, just be the salt of the earth. But like, when you actually think about it in a literal context, you can't hide salt in a food. Think about it. You can't see it, but you can't hide it.
Right.
If the food has salt, you will taste the salt. If the food doesn't have salt, 9 times out of 10, you could not enjoy the food.
Right.
So Christ is asking us to be like, guess what? When you're in a crowd, even though no one can see you, your presence must be felt. They should know that, hey, there's a Christian in this audience. There's a Christian in this crowd. There are certain things that we should and should not stand for. And we shouldn't feel bad about it because all the other religions, they don't feel bad when they have to stand out.
And that's the truth, bro. In my personal life, I felt that the times when I sincerely lowered my, or maybe downplayed my religion, or when I tried to hide it, or when I felt embarrassed by it, or when I chose not to share this with people, is when I was in a circumstance that wasn't exactly Christian, or when I'm around people that aren't Christian, or I'm in a secular setting and I don't want to ruin the vibe or change the atmosphere. Or maybe when I'm trying to pursue a certain type of lifestyle, right? And excuse me, a text that is so deep to me that I really like is Matthew 10, verse 38 and 39. It says, "He that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me." Y'all can interpret that how y'all want to interpret it. But the next one is the one that hit the nail in the head for me, because it says, "He that findeth his life shall lose it. And he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it." And I take that literally and figuratively. But in the figurative sense, it's like, you're so busy trying to establish your life, right? You don't want people to know that you're a Christian, because it's going to taint the path that you're going on, or the perception that you work so hard to build. So you're trying to find your life. You're trying to cement your reputation, right? And Jesus is saying, you're doing all of that just to lose your life. However, if you take this reputation and you submit this reputation for my sake, if you're willing to lose it all, or if you're willing to be embarrassed in front of others for Jesus' name, you will then find your life. You will find eternal life, and you will also find your purpose. And so I just want to encourage people, let's try to embrace as much as possible, embrace showing ourselves as Christians, especially during times when we feel like we want to hide that, or we want to back down from that. That is the time for us to actually practice actually being more unapologetically Christian. Because if you've done your research and you study the word and you understand the importance of Christ and understand the truth of Christ and of the Bible, this isn't anything to be ashamed about, you know?
Amen and amen. So last week we had a guest, Richard, and that was a phenomenal episode. Hopefully everyone out there enjoyed it. And we were talking about 1 Samuel 28, the witch of Endor, when Saul consulted a medium because he no longer was getting instruction from God. And he was scared because the Philistine army was was mounting up to attack them. And he knew that his mortal enemy, according to him, David, was on the side of the Philistines, because, he pursued David earnestly time after time after time, and David's faith grew weary and he decided to live amongst the Philistines. Definitely check out the 2 episodes before this and you get a more backstory on that. But last week, in the essence of time, we did not finish 1 Samuel 28, so we're going to be picking up from 1 Samuel 20 and we will go on from there. So I will just kick it off. Immediately, I guess I'll just go from 16 just to kind of give the background.
Verse 16?
Yeah. So then this is when the witch brought up the spirit. Then Samuel said, "Why do you ask me, seeing the Lord has departed from you and has become your enemy? And the Lord has done for himself as he spoke by me, for the Lord has torn your kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor David, because you did not obey the voice of the Lord, nor execute his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore, the Lord has done this thing to you this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with you into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. The Lord will also deliver the army of Israel into the hand of the Philistines." And this is verse 20. Immediately after this, Saul fell full length on the ground and was dreadfully afraid of the words of Samuel. And there was no strength in him, for he had not eaten no food all day or night. And the woman came to Saul and saw that he was severely troubled, and said to him, "Look, your maidservant has obeyed your voice, and I had put my life and I put my life in my hands and heeded the words which you spoke to me. Now therefore, please heed also the voice of your maidservant, and let me set a piece of bread before you and eat, that you may have strength when you go on your way. But he refused, I will not eat. So his servants together with the woman urged him, and he heeded their voice. Then they arose from the ground and sat on the bed. The woman had a fatted calf in the house, and she hastened to kill it. And she took flour and kneaded it and baked unleavened bread from it. So she brought it before Saul and his servants, and they ate. Then they rose and went on their way.
That night, bro, like all of that in one night. I don't know how long it takes to slaughter a cow.
Bro, I'm like, slaughter the cow, season the cow if they season it. If they season
Hopefully
it.
they, the
Have some
salt, the
salt.
salt metaphor that you just used. Right?
Oh, I would hope they had some salt. I mean, really, yeah, I hope they had some salt.
Mm-hmm.
And then they cook it. Like,
Right.
slaughter, season,
Cook
butcher.
it. And then she kneaded dough, she baked the bread.
And
all
see,
that.
like the one you saving grace with the dough at least is
It can be quick.
It's unleavened bread. So you don't gotta wait for no dough to rise and thing.
yeah.
So you just get some flour and I guess some water and some milk, and because they bread never used to be that fancy back in the day.
Yeah.
So you might have had a little bit of sugar, you might sweeten up a little bit, but
Yeah, that's a quick fix. But all right, so this is what I get from this. So Saul just spoke to a spirit through the medium. Last week, if you tuned in last week, or if you heard the former episode, we kind of went into how this was not the prophet Samuel speaking. This was a spirit speaking as if it was the prophet Samuel through the witch. Some what's it called? Some translations would make it seem like he was speaking to the thing, but the spirit was speaking to Saul through the medium. You understand? And you can tell that based on how he communicates back. Because he kind of, what do you see? You know what I'm saying? If Saul had actually seen this thing, then he would have known if it was Samuel or not. But anyway, so he made an assumption that it was Samuel, and it spoke as if it was Samuel. But Saul is at a place where the tensions between the Israelites and the Philistines are at an all-time high. Saul has spent the last few months or years pursuing David, and the Philistines have raided was it Kira, the Kayla or something like that. It was a city when David had to come to the rescue and stuff like that. So the Philistines were taking advantage for a long time of Saul's absence as he tried to pursue David, and now you can't escape battle. And so he goes to this lady hoping to hear from God. But Saul had already killed all of those priests in that city. He had already run away David, and Samuel had died, and he would not speak to God, would not speak to Saul by dream or prophet or Urim. So he's desperate to hear from God. So he actually goes to the devil's playground because it's like, I can't hear from God, but I want to hear from some spirit, right? And the point I'm trying to make is Saul is very desperate to the point where he is fasting. Now, the Bible does not come out and say he is fasting, but through context clues, we know he is fasting. He's weak, right? He had not eaten all day. Was that by choice? If we go back, I think it was like First Samuel chapter 14, when Jonathan, when they were fighting the Philistines, this was a while back, probably years. This was years before, right? Saul made an oath that nobody is going to eat until we pursue his enemies. So we know how dedicated Saul gets when he goes to war, and how serious it is for him. Like, he makes oaths that I'm not going to eat, no one's going to eat until XYZ. And so now we see Saul has not eaten, and they were about to go to war. So my assumption is that this is because he was fasting. And this is to show how desperate Saul actually was to hear from God and to win this battle, because he feels like, and which is true, he has no support from God during this time.
None at all. So now reading on in 1 Samuel chapter 29. Now we see the stage of the battle. Then the Philistines gathered together all their armies at Aphek, and the Israelites encamped by a fountain which is in Jezreel. And the lords of the Philistines passed in review by hundreds and by thousands, but David and his men passed in review at the rear with Achish. Then the princes of the Philistines said, "What are these Hebrews doing here?"
Finally, somebody with sense in the Philistine camp.
Exactly. I have a point. I can read on a little on. And Achish said to the princes, "Is this not David, the servant of Saul, king of Israel, who has been with me these days or these years? And to this day I have found no fault in him since he defected to me." Now think about this now. Use David, right? And again, we painted a picture two weeks ago in episode 93, how much of a sticky situation this was going to be for David. Because David was about to fight with his enemies, who are now his pseudo friends, against his country, his nation, who are his family and friends, but Saul is his enemy. And he's dressed in a sticky situation. But now this kind of goes back to being the salt of the earth. David was going along with it. And we could debate how bad that was, but he was going along with it. He was there marching with the Philistines to go fight Israel. The Philistines captains went to the king and was like, "What are you doing?
Why is he here?
Why are they here?
Right.
Why are these Hebrews amongst us?" Like, think about it. Like, it's so funny. Like, David wasn't even like, you know what? Maybe, king, I shouldn't go. It might be hard for me to fight against my people. Like, maybe I shouldn't go.
David didn't give no pushback.
Because the funny thing about it too, think about it. He'd been lying, saying for the last 14 months, that's who he has been 16 or 14, one of those.
A year and 4 months.
16 months.
Right.
That these are the people who he has been attacking. So to Achish saying,
"This should be nothing to you.
This nothing to you."
So ain't no way he could have give pushback, because if we read chapter 27, David gave off the impression that he was raiding the villages of Judah. But he was really raiding the Jeremielites and the Amalekites and just other enemies of Israel. So David at a crossroads, because now he have the opportunity to fight, right? But the king have the impression that he been fighting his enemies this whole time, like I just say. And now David have an opportunity to do that. But what is he going, like if David was actually to go to war, if the princess wasn't giving him pushback, what would David have to do in this situation? Would he have to continue?
The unthinkable.
The unthinkable. You see what I'm saying? So like, David is committed to making this look good, or to living this lie. But to what degree would he continue to live that lie?
Like, that question you just asked is so interesting, because here are two ways you can look at it, right? For lack of a better word, David is indebted to Achish. You might ask why. When David felt that he had no place else to go, Achish took him in. And not only just merely taking him in, Achish gave him his own city and free reign to do what you have to do. Free reign. And so now Achish is saying, "Yo, we're going to battle. Now, what are you going to do?"
And it's like, it's time you could pay Achish back, actually, now. And Achish low-key expecting that. Because David already make it seem like, I'll show you what I can do. And it ain't like I rusty, because I've been, quote-unquote, doing this for months now, for over a year now I've been doing this.
Exactly.
And now you ask me to do it, and you, quote-unquote, my lord, you my king. It's an honor for me to be able to repay you back in that way. That's the type of energy that David giving off. And Achish believes it, you know.
He's selling it quite convincingly. So now in verse 4, but the princes of the Philistines were angry with him. So the princes of the Philistines said to him, "Make this fellow return. Make him go back, that he may go back to the place which you have appointed for him. And do not let him go with us to battle, lest in the battle he become our adversary. For with what could he reconcile himself to his master, if not from the heads of these men? Is this not the David whom, when they sang to one another in dances, saying, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands? And they so right. This is the same David that they are oh so familiar with, because this is the same David that killed Goliath.
Bro, of all the people you want us to fight with, him, bro, this not gonna, like, to their perspective, this is not going to end well, bro.
It's not, I mean, because think about it now. They're saying, like, one would think, okay, to Saul's, like, we look at it from Saul's perspective, David is with them and David is fighting, like that I'm going to lose. To the war generals now, we can't trust him.
Because, you know what? If David want to get back in Saul's good graces, what better way would it be, what could he do that than to betray us?
Turn on us. He already know our battle plan. He already know he know where we about to move, where we about to hide, where we about to set up. He knows the best way to get us, and then all of our men are going to be thinking he's an ally. So if he comes up to them, he can just go rogue.
Right. Their gods will be down, you know? And so, like, they make a good point. I feel like I would be thinking the same thing.
Exactly. And I might have said this before too, but like we start looking at it too, like, again, we about to go worship Dagon, pray to Dagon. This fella ain't gonna be there doing that with us.
Nope.
That alone might jeopardize us because we don't worship the same God.
Right.
We don't eat the same food. We don't have the same culture, and more so, he about to fight his own culture. No, we're not having it.
It just don't make sense, bro. I want to kill your people. I don't want to fight alongside Hebrews.
Can you stomach that?
Right, like, why would I do that, bro? It just don't make sense to me, bro. Like, if you my enemy and all your people are my enemy, no, you literally are my enemy because you killed our people for years now, right? And you switch sides, and I supposed to just accept you. You know what I mean? Like, it just don't make sense, bro. Like, I want to kill you. I want to kill your people. I don't want to fight with you. I don't want to share this with you. You know, and so they make a good point because, like, David is behind enemy lines for his own protection, but that don't mean we have to accept you. You know what I mean? The king, you and the king of your agreement, but we going to war. I care about the safety of my men and my country. And so, and it's so funny because, like, they had the king had to acquiesce to them. The king didn't want to do it, but they was compelling enough to the point where the king was like, I guess I have to agree with you all because you all feel so passionately about this.
And again, that goes to show how much of a Philistine lifestyle David was living. Because think about it now. The generals are trying to convince the king why a very good warrior should not be fighting on their side. Usually it would be the other way around. You would think in almost any movie or any story you would ever read or something like that, it would be like the generals have to go to the king and beg for this person to fight alongside them because the king is like, nope, I don't trust him. But the king is saying, no, this guy has shown me nothing wrong that we can see in, let's just say, go verse 6. And Achish called David and said, surely as the Lord lives, you have been upright and you're going out and you're coming in with me in the army is good in my sight. For this day I have not found evil in you since the day of your coming to me. Nevertheless, the Lords do not favor you. Then now return and go in peace, that you may not displease the lords of the Philistines. And it's so interesting too, because think about it. A few years ago, this was the same David who didn't care if he displeased the lords of the Philistines. He was just coming in and attacking y'all cold-heartedly, ruthlessly, because why? He was fighting for his God. He was fighting against the people who blasphemed his God. And now he is living so cozily in their midst that the king is saying, bro, I ain't find no favor with you. You have convinced me that you have turned on your people. Even though we know David was lying, David was running amok, hoodwinking the king, but it still goes to show how his lifestyle was still a Philistine lifestyle.
It was perfectly in line with the Philistines to the point where the Philistines say that I have found no fault in you. Like, you perfect.
Exactly.
Like, and you got to think about what's their definition of perfect. So to me, right, as somebody who fears God and understands the Bible and generally understand what God expects of us, right? If you or anyone was to come to me saying, bro, I just finished raiding these different towns and stuff like that, essentially just robbing people, burglarizing, killing people
Ruthlessly.
I'd look at you like, no, bro, I don't support that, bro.
Like, why?
Like, why? Like, if I was the king, I might have to arrest you. Like, no, we got to right these wrongs. We got to give these people back their things. You understand what I'm saying? But the king, he liked that, and that kind of stroke his ego because he like, bro, he doing all this for me. He becoming so, obviously David was lying about who he was raiding, but the fact of the matter is David was raiding.
Still raiding.
You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, bro, you had to live a certain lifestyle to even be that ruthless. This ain't the same dude who was fighting against Goliath to defend the honor of God, as you mentioned, bro. Like, imagine if that guy could see where he was to this day, bro. Like, you would notice that it's a contrast, you know, in the things that you fought for and the things that you were doing to now. Like, you at a place where, bro, like you at an all-time low on like in terms of morality. And the Philistine king, that's right up his alley, because that's probably the type of lifestyle that he would want from his men. You understand? And David just fitting right in.
Fitting right in. And then we see, so in verse 8, David said to Achish, but what have I done? And to this day, what have you found in your servant as long as I have been with you, that I might not go and fight against the enemies of the Lord my king? So think about how
Of my Lord the king.
Of my
He's
Lord.
talking to Achish.
Yeah. So again, think about how deep in David was. Like, you getting your out from God.
Yeah.
Like, God is giving you your out. Like, you in a precarious situation, just like we talk about in Abigail's wisdom, this your out.
Yep.
Now you have the choice to double down and go on in sin, or you have the chance to say, you know what, maybe I in too deep. Let me pull myself out.
Yep.
I mean, at some point I give up the charade, but David's like, yo, why must I not go now?
Right.
Like, you letting them tell you, you's the king. You know I ain't do nothing wrong. Let me go. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, David really committed to this lie. You know, because like to me, I'd have been like, oh, really? No, I can't go. Oh, man. You know what I'm saying? But like, obviously in my heart of hearts, I would have been like, oh, thank God. But David probably was like that. But we could just see the lengths David was willing to go through to keep up this facade with the king.
And Achish answered David and said, I know that you are as good in my sight as an angel of God.
Wow.
Nevertheless, the princes of the Philistines have said, he shall not go up with us in battle. Now therefore rise early in the morning with your master's servants who have come with you. And as soon as you are up early in the morning and have light, depart. So David and his men rose early to depart in the morning to return to the land of the Philistines. And the Philistines went up to Jezreel. This is where it gets a little interesting. So we're in chapter 30, 1 Samuel chapter 30. Now it happened when David and his men came to Ziklag, and Ziklag was the city that Achish gave David when him and his men came to Philistia to live.
Yep.
So they came to Ziklag on the third day. So now we see it took them 3 days.
Yeah, the 3 days journey.
3 days journey to get to Ziklag. And the Amalekites had invaded the south of Ziklag and attacked it and burned it with fire, and had taken captive the women and those who were there from small to great. They did not kill anyone, but carried them away and went their way. Wow. So David and his men came to the city, and there it was, burned with fire. And their wives, their sons, and their daughters had been taken captive. Then David and the people who were with them lifted up their voices and wept until they had no power to weep. And David's two wives, Ahinoam, the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, the wife of Nabal, the Carmelite, who had been taken captive. Now David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of the people was grieved, every man for his sons and his daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. So that was 1 Samuel chapter 31 through 6. Yep. And that was a lot to discuss right there. So kick it off.
Bro, no lie. So, all right. So you busy trying to convince the Philistine king in some, y'all in some land. Y'all wasn't in Ziklag, obviously. But y'all was in a 3 days journey away, right? while y'all go in and while y'all deliberating, trying to fight against the Israelites, the people, the Amalekites, are busy ransacking and burning down your city. And what's interesting to me is that if we go to 1 Samuel chapter 15, we hear about the Amalekites. You know, this was probably one of the second stories that involved the Amalekites. The first was in Exodus. It's between Exodus and Deuteronomy because if you all remember, the Amalekites, they kind of attacked the Israelites and God promised to blot out the Amalekites. Fast forward to 1 Samuel chapter 15. Saul, the Bible says that he was supposed to kill everyone, but he killed everyone except the king Agag and their sheep, right? But then we go to Samuel chapter 27, and David is raiding the Amalekites. That's a part of the people who he's raiding. And it's like, hold on, but I thought you just killed it. I thought they killed everyone except the king Agag. And then in chapter 15 of 1 Samuel, it says that Samuel actually goes on to kill Agag. So it's like, were these guys completely destroyed or not? You know, and that's a reasonable question. And if you come up with this question, that just shows that you're paying attention, because there's so many ites in the Bible, you could get mistaken. Sometimes I get Amalekites and Anakites mixed up. You see what I'm saying? And so, but in my research, I've seen theologians say that, because you know, the Bible is the historic events as it relates to God, but then they also had war events that were documented. And when we go through 1st and 2nd Kings and Chronicles, you would see they mention other books like Annals of the King or Wars and stuff like that. And in war language, they speak hyperbolically. So they would say they killed everybody. Not a person was breeding, this and that and the third. But a lot of times they just mean everybody who was involved in the war was killed. Excuse me. But that doesn't mean that everybody in that entire nation was killed. And obviously we can see that, because if the Amalekites was killed 15 chapters ago, how could David 3 chapters ago kill all of them again? Because remember, David didn't leave anybody when he raided the Amalekites. And now the Amalekites coming back to kill. Obviously, the entire nation of Amalek was not destroyed, you know. And so this is personal, because these people, not only did they rob David and his men, kidnap their wives and children, right? Probably their sheep, all type of stuff. But they burned down the city because they wanted to make a statement, bro. This is revenge, bro. We want y'all to feel that. And so after 3 days journey, you're tired, you miss your wife, you miss your kids, you're ready to just come home and relax. You come home and meet everything that you own, your possessions, your family, everything gone. Completely gone. You don't know the state of them. You don't know if they dead or alive, but you know what you would have done
at this point. And think about it. You know what you did when the shoe was on the other foot.
Right.
We knew what we did when we raided whatever city it was in or town or village, whatever. We know we killed everybody. So they really came to return the favor, because the depiction of it looked like the same. Think about it. Nothing is left.
Nothing.
Nothing is left.
No one left to tell the story.
We have seen this playbook.
Yeah.
Because we wrote the book.
Right. Yeah, we started it.
And so now they come to return the favor. We were already thinking the worst. We thinking the worst. So now, and again, just to put like the picture in people's head, like it was a 75 miles from Ziklag to Apek, where the battle was happening. So on average, if they walk 25 miles a day, and
let's say a day's journey is
25 miles. That's still a lot of walking.
No, that's a lot of walking, bro. Like,
that's still a lot of walking with your gear, whatever, horses and everything you got to come with. Like that's a journey, bro. And so now you've been gone for more than that time too, because that's a 3 days. Think about it, it's a 3 days journey, then a 3 days journey back. So you, at bare minimum, a week you've been gone. So you really don't know at what point this really happened. Did it happen like right after we left? Did it happen like 2 days ago? Like, we don't know. We just know we come back and everything destroyed.
Yep. And we was just talking about how God saved David by giving him a way out of the battle, right? But imagine if they did go on to fight, bro. This could have been months. This could have happened months before they came back. And by then, bro, ain't no telling if your people would have been alive, bro.
Ain't no telling.
Ain't no telling if you could have get to the bottom of it and know who did it. this was so fresh, y'all was able to just come up and see what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But bro, if y'all are going, if the Lord had not prevented y'all from going to war, bro, it could have been worse than it is now.
But to one of your points pre-part, it was like you kind of starting to see David's transgressions catching up with him now.
For true.
Because now you're seeing that the place where you thought you were safe. Because again, full recap for all our listeners. David was in the land of the Philistines because Saul was pursuing him so fervently that he said he was no longer safe in Israel. Yep. And even when he was in Israel, he was tired of living in caves and all that kind of stuff, always being on guard, hunting for Saul. So he just left Israel completely. And he said, you know what? I will be safer in the land of my enemies. And the sad thing is, even though we knew he wasn't safe in the land of his enemies, the appearance of it was true. Even though the lifestyle he was living that we talked about wasn't of God, it wasn't holy, it wasn't right, it wasn't righteous, but he didn't have to worry about Saul, and arguably him and his family were safe. He didn't have to look over his back per se. And right when you were about to make a big mistake, a big mess up, God not only gave you an out, but now you're seeing the reason why you got this out too. Because think about Nakhaz's point just a while ago. If he had gone to battle, you would have seen, we literally could guess, make an educated guess what the outcome would have been.
Bro, matter of fact, the people of the Amalekites, they would have been long gone.
They would have been long gone, but I honestly think they would have killed the people.
Fuck.
It was only God.
Months later, bro, come on,
It was only God that the people that they didn't return the favor yet.
Right.
Like they literally didn't return the favor yet because hands down, they were supposed to kill them.
So now David's men want to kill him.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Bro, but who wouldn't though?
Mutiny, bro.
My thing is, bro, Joe, I love you as a commander, but I don't love you more than I love my wife. More than I love my son and daughter. You know what I mean? Like,
bro, we only in this line because of you.
Because of you. It was your decision to come here. It was your decision to raid people. Whether I went to it willingly or unwillingly, I follow your orders, and this is where it led me. I would have never do this if it would have cost me my wife. My wife ain't got nothing to do with this. But she got to pay. You understand what I'm saying?
And that's what has hurt more when someone who is innocent is suffering the consequences.
Fox.
It's like, yes, my wife, but my kids, my kids got to go through this too. Like, they scared and terrified. I'm the man of the house. I told them, like, y'all should be safe here. We just going to war. They pray and they come back and see me, but something happened. Think about it, like, all the able-bodied men was away. I'm saying, so, like, literally, he was left defenseless.
Yeah.
But what it, like, because from time we know David had his band of 600 men, and we know the whole 600 was with him.
Yep. Which wasn't smart to begin with, but they was lost in the sauce, bro.
And David wasn't really consulting God up in this whole time, too. So David was just moving in the flesh.
Yeah, he's just moving out. David wanted to move.
Leaning on his own understanding.
And true, it might have been fun for everybody raiding people and doing all of this and that. Or they might have hated it, bro. But at the end of the day, now, like we just said, bro, you get a dose of your own medicine. It don't taste good, bro. So now they're to the point where, bro, I should kill this man, bro. Because you caused us to get here, bro.
And then everyone angry and sad. There's no logical thinking. And when it's just pure emotions.
Yeah.
Now they in a rage. They saying, you know what? David used the problem. You are the problem.
And they're not wrong, though.
That's the sad part.
That's the sad part about it, bro. They're not wrong.
Man, but then we see, what did David do? When his back was against the wall, how verse 6 ended. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. And this is the first time we see anything of this essence in the last 3-4 chapters.
Yeah.
David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. The last time David was really talking to God was literally when God told him, again, not to kill Saul.
Right.
So, and it's kind like, we talk about this too, like how David had all his flaws and stuff, and man, we have a lot more David to go, but when his back was really against the wall, even though he messed up, he knew where he had to turn.
Real.
Like, hey, I'm at my lowest point. The only person who can help me now is God. And it's so powerful that, and it's so sad that how much times we find ourselves in the same circumstances as well. Like, man, I have nowhere else to turn. Because I've already tried doing it my way time and time after again when I should have been gone to the Lord. But now I'm at such a low point. God, I need you to perform a miracle, because I don't know if my kid's alive.
I need thee.
These guys are about to kill me.
Yeah.
Lord, I'm at my lowest point. Like, the only thing come out, like, I am knocking on death's door.
I have no one to turn to.
Babe.
I have 2 wives, but right now they're not here. I have no one to turn to, bro.
And think about it too, man. Like, again, the Israelites don't want him right now because, I mean, Saul don't want you.
I mean, but the Israelites might not want you because you among the Philistines.
Yeah, right now you're enemy number 1. Right. The Philistines don't want you.
Right.
They say, we don't trust you.
They made that clear.
Your own men who you thought would have your back no matter what, they thinking about killing you right now because you done, you done cause everything get lost.
And you know what? They got swords, bro. They could stab you. They could cut off your head. They want to stone you, bro.
Harsh. You gonna feel this.
you
ain't nothing quick about me about this.
Feel this, bro.
Ain't
they want to put you to death, bro. Like, it's crazy, bro.
Man. But yeah, so David turned to the Lord, and then David asked for Abiathar, the priest of Ahimelech. That was a whole story. Definitely go back and check out our previous episode. Please bring me an ephod here to me. And Abiathar brought the ephod to David. So David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I pursue this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, the Lord answered David, pursue, for you shall surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. That's powerful. Nothing will be lost. No one will be dead. Everything you think you've lost, you will regain again. And man, that goes back, like, that's so powerful that even in a like other sense, bro, like, man, you was on the verge of losing your kingdom before you even get your kingdom. You about to recover all that stuff, bro. Like, all the everything you had lost and you thought you lost, you about to get back.
There's a turning point for David right now.
This is one of the, he about to come out the valley of the shadow of death. He about to come out that valley.
Oh, man.
Man, that's actually crazy. I really want to know when he wrote the 23rd Psalms.
True. Because I know he had plenty of opportunities to write it, bro.
Right, exactly.
He was in that valley many days. He was in that valley.
Man, I will fear no evil. Anyway, so David went out, he and the 600 men who were with him, and came to the brook.
To the brook
Sure. And where those who stayed, who were left behind. But David pursued, and he and 400 men, for 200 men stayed behind, who were so weary that they could not cross the brook to be sure. So now think about it too. Like, they just had a 3 day, 75-mile journey. Probably had a 3 day, 75-mile journey right before that too. So they came back and they could not rest. They couldn't have no comfort. They had their little weeping and wailing, and you finished crying, so you're even more tired. And you even gonna want to cook your food.
Nope.
And now they're saying, guess what? Time is of the essence because we don't know the conditions of our loved ones. Yes, the Lord told David all would be well, but in your mind, I need to go get my wife. I need to go get my sons and my daughters. Forget the possessions right now. I need to go get my loved ones. I need to get there as soon as possible before these people are crazy and kill my loved ones. And you ain't want to be the one who wife get killed and everyone else get their wife back. And they just ain't a good feeling. So we all rushing as fast as we could eat. Sleep. We can sleep later. We can sleep when we get there. Man, oh man.
But 200 of them was too tired.
Too tired.
To make it. Like,
weak. But I shouldn't say weak, but at the same time, like, your body just fatigued.
They would have been weak. Yeah, they would have been fatigued. Not that they was weak.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, and rightfully so. You understand what I'm saying? So they had to stop. They had to stop at the brook Besor, whatever that means. And the other four, David and the remainder of his other 400 men continued to pursue.
So,
verse 11.
Excuse me. Then David found an Egyptian in the field.
And they found
an Egyptian in the field and brought him to David. And they gave him bread and he ate. And let him drink water. And they gave him a piece of cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. So when he had eaten, his strength came back to him. For he had eaten no bread nor drunk water for 3 days and nights. Then David said to him, to whom do you belong? And where are you from? This is so random, right? But you ever eat a fig?
I ate a fig Newton.
Are you a fan?
No, I don't like them.
Okay.
I personally don't like them.
I'm not a fan of figs.
I don't know what a fig look like, but like the fig Newton, like the texture of it, not a fan. Like, shout out to all those who eat it. But let me tell you what make me laugh, bro. You ever see when someone get arrested, right? and they gonna snitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then they been in the cell for a day or two. They ain't really get feed, right? And so they ask for food.
Mm-hmm.
So the detective will get them like McDonald's and stuff like that. And then they
just
tell
start
it all.
eating, yeah.
They eat it and then they snitch on everything. You see what I'm saying? That's what this reminds me of, bro.
That's essentially what happened. That's essentially what happened. And so, and he said to them, I'm a young man from Egypt, servant of Amalekite, and my master left me behind because 3 days ago I fell sick. We made an invasion in the southern area of the Cherethites, in the territory which belonged to Judah, and of the southern area of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. I just imagine him just, some raisins? Okay.
We burned Ziklag with fire. We did this, we did that. He telling it all, bro. Like,
And David said, can you take me down to this troop? So he said, swear to me by God that you will neither kill me nor deliver me in the hands of my master, and I'll take you down to this troop. My guy said, I kind of like my freedom again.
right, Fox, bro. Fox.
I kind of like being alive too. So hopefully you don't punish me for the sins I've just committed. Let me go free. I'm helping you out here, buddy.
Right, because some people would have been like, once you get there, and if they cruel enough, they can give you to your master. Like, this man is a snitch, so your master can deal with you.
Or kill you too. Because you
I'll still kill you too.
kill you,
You know what I mean?
ain't no much turn you back to your master.
But I watch plenty of movies, bro. It's some sick plots out there, bro. Like after you do good for all the people, they still turn around and double cross it.
Yeah, they cross them one shot.
Yeah.
You was part of this.
For true.
You were still
What you mean we?
You were
We
still
were
fair.
Ziklag?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. And knowing David, bro. Anyway, I get to that right now.
Oh my! So in verse 16, and when he had brought him down, there they were, spread out over the land, eating and drinking and dancing because of all the great spoil which they had taken from the land of the Philistines.
I would have been burning inside to see them celebrate, bro.
Exactly. Remember when Moses and Joshua come back down from the mountain, and the people were partying, and Joshua was like, "Oh, it must be a war."
Right?
And Moses like, "That's the song of revelry."
Right.
Moses was mad. You think they what? Anyway, so then David attacked from the twilight until the evening of the next day. Not a man escaped except for the 400 men who rode on camels and fled.
You see what I said? Like, it's like hyperbolic. Like, not a man escaped except for
the 400 men.
the 400 men. It's probably about the same amount of men that you was fighting with. You see what I'm
Exactly.
saying? Like,
Exactly.
it's just so crazy about this beating them though, bro. Because think about it, right? You kill the army, right? And it's 400 of us versus y'all, and it's like 401 of y'all. Like, y'all pretty evenly matched. But they like, no, I'm good. I'll keep my life. You see what I'm saying? Like, y'all can have the spoils and everything. I'll just keep my life.
We gone. So David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away. God said it and had to come true. And David rescued his 2 wives, and nothing of theirs was lacking, either small or great, sons or daughters, spoil, anything which had been taken from them. David recovered all. And it really just shows how good God is, in his mercy, not giving us what we deserve. Because think about it. I mean, and it sounds so morbid, but David them did not deserve to get anything back.
No, man. They actually, it's even now. Y'all spoil us. Y'all kill all our people. We spoil y'all back. At least we ain't kill y'all people. We just steal from y'all. We burn everything down. We even. You see what I'm saying? Pretty much.
And that's only one of the towns David them raided in his last
Right.
16 months.
Right.
So
And that's a good point, because we only have one example of what he said to Akish, but you was in this town for over a year, bro. Like, who knows all of all of the grounds you would have covered.
exactly.
But we just know when you come back from the raid, you was lying.
And so then David took all the flocks and the herds they had driven before those other livestock and said, "This is David's spoil." Now David came to the 200 men who had been so weary that they could not follow David, whom they also had made stay at the brook of Beshor. So they went out to meet David and to meet the people who were with him. And when David came near the people, he greeted them. Then all the wicked and worthless men, reading in verse 22, of those who went with David answered and said, because they did not go out with us, we will not give them any of the spoil that we had recovered, except for every man's wife and children, that they may lead them away and depart. And so really and truly, here's what these people saying. Y'all could take y'all wife and kids because, well,
That's your wife and kids.
that's y'all wife and kids. I don't want to take care of them. But everything else we get is ours.
Yep.
I know what's so messed up about that too. And okay, logically, I could understand if it's the spoils from the additional spoils.
Right.
But it's just everything, like, it just say me, you, and Dom going somewhere, right? Dom stay back. Just because, well, he ain't here to defend himself. He stay back, right? And we come back and he's like, well, we like, wait, we ain't giving you
None of what yours, none of your stuff.
none of your original stuff, bro.
Right.
It's kind of messed up.
It is kind of messed up, and the Bible never said these people was friends. Now you see, they saying
Exactly.
That's just messed up though, because like, you know, if they could have fight for themselves, they would have. And so like, if it was out of their hands, why would you keep it from like if they were just being lazy, or they fundamentally felt like, no, I'm not going, or they disagreed with the decision to go? I can understand you saying, bro, you didn't want to go, so you wasn't gonna have this anyway, bro.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, bro,
They was earnestly trying to come.
they was earnestly trying to come, bro. It ain't like they stay at Ziklag, you feel me? And so, like, that's where you can see, like, they and the Bible described them as being wicked because these people selfish, you know what I mean? Like, greedy. That's some greedy stuff to say, bro.
But being agents of the devil, man, like, it's so interesting that you don't see God and spare everything and deliver these people into your hands, especially when all y'all was just crying y'all hearts out.
Right? Y'all ain't do this. God do this, bro. And y'all, and we know God do it because God tell you from beforehand. And God make a provisions for this Egyptian to be sick so that y'all could get the information from him, so y'all could find him, so y'all could ambush them. And now y'all trying to take everything as if this was by y'all. It's crazy, bro.
But then we see David stepped in verse 23, my brethren, you shall not do so with what the Lord has given us, who has preserved us and delivered into our hand the troop that came against us. For who will heed you in this matter? But as his part is who goes down to the battle, so shall his part be who stays by the supplies. They share all alike. So it was from that day forward. He made a statute and ordinance for Israel to this day. So David was saying, no. It don't go like so.
No.
How we say in the Bible.
Right.
It don't go like so. You can't say just because they didn't come, they don't deserve to get their share of the spoils. No. The army, we all is one army. We all supposed to be one nation. We all supposed to be one unit.
All for one
One for all.
bro, yeah.
That's just how it goes. You can't just be so selfish and so. The next word I'm not going to say in the podcast.
Yeah, bro.
You just can't be like that.
No.
So in verse 26, when David came to Ziklag, the names are coming. He sent he sent some of the spoil to the elders of Judah, to his friends, saying, here is a present for you from the spoil of the enemies of the Lord. To those that were in Bethel, to those that were in Ramoth of the south, to those that were in Jatir, to those that were in Eror, those that were in Siphmoth, those that were in Estomoa, those that were in Rakal, those that were in the cities of the Jerahmeelites, those who were in the cities of the Kenites, those who were in Hamor, those who were in Koroshan, those who were in Athak, those who were in Hebron, and to all the places where David himself and his men were accustomed to rule. I feel like even the author there was like, yeah, we getting a little too much now.
Right.
No one's gonna feel left out at this point.
And so we can see where David actually trying to make amends. Or I don't know if it's making amends, but David really just trying to ease. This a peace offering. You see, what they're
Essentially.
saying, right? Yeah. And it's a good gesture. You know what I mean? Like, it's a good gesture, good political move. Because at the end of the day, he is from the tribe of Judah, bro. These my people, right? It wasn't no beef. You know, God didn't tell me to leave Judah. You know, I really should have stayed there the whole time, but I ended up leaving. And the people I was living with was actually going off to war with y'all and the rest of the Israelites. And so it looked bad on me. For all I know, the word could have been that I was fighting along with them. And truthfully, if it hadn't have been for the grace of God, I would have been fighting along with them. So my name You feel me? My reputation has been tainted with my decisions over the past year or so. And I am aware that I'm anointed to be king. I don't know when that would be, but I don't want to dig myself deeper and be found guilty in the court of public opinion. You understand? I want to make amends where amends needs to be made. And these people of Judah, some of the people in the southern part of Judah, they had just lost their possessions. I'm giving you back possessions. This is a time when y'all need possession because y'all just get robbed. You feel me? I given y'all a gift when y'all needed it the most, and I feel like that was probably received very well for David. You know,
They probably got back everything they have lost as well. And it's something that you said earlier in the pod, like this was a turning point for David, and it goes back to something we've said a lot in these 95 episodes that we've been going on. But God always gives you a choice, and it's always a choice that has to be made. And again, we see David had, well, several choices in this episode alone, but he had the choice to double down. And he decided, you know what? Even though I'm in a precarious situation and I try and fend off, he said, you know what? Yeah, let me just pull out of this. Let me retreat. Let me go back to my city. And what's so interesting too, because going back to how we started the podcast, is so many times we as Christians might find ourselves in predicaments that we shouldn't have been in because we wanted to fit in, because we wanted to be a part of the environment, because we wanted to be a part of the crowd. And there are times we get these outs, and it's like sometimes we don't take them, sometimes we do take them, but it's just really good. I'm just like reflecting like how many times I've been in this environment. Like I know I shouldn't be here, but I'm in too deep. And that's how the devil really starts like playing on your emotions. You already come so far that there's no turning back for you. But then we seeing right now, even with David, like God's grace and mercy was still shining throughout. Because one would think you've been killing these people ruthlessly. Yes, they was enemies of God, but God didn't tell you to kill them. There's a difference. Like God
didn't send you on no mission.
God ain't sending the mission to kill these people. You know what I'm saying? And the people who God gave you license to kill, you're now buddy with them. And so you can't justify not killing the Philistines and killing these other peoples when God's main enemy right now are the Philistines, who are earnestly attacking God's people. And so, yeah.
So, I mean, bro, full circle. You wouldn't believe how full circle this could be, bro.
Go for it.
David, the last time he spoke to Saul, he was saying, bro, I don't want to be in a position where I worship in idols, bro. Y'all making it look like I ain't an Israelite, bro. Like I am an Israelite. I want to be among my people, bro. I want to live freely, right? And then David got in his own mind saying, bro, Saul is not going to allow me to live freely. The only way I could survive is if I live among Saul's enemies. He live among the Philistines. And in order to live among the Philistines, I putting it in today's terms, bro, he had to minimize his Christianity. The way the part started, he could not live boldly as a Christian. He had to live as if he was one of the pagans in the pagan nation. You understand what I'm saying? And so for those 16 months, for those 16 months that he stayed in Ziklag, he was trying to live a life or to find a certain life that he was trying to make a Philistine reputation for himself. And it's funny because we see it in action. Matthew 10 verse 38, the way we started. He who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. He who finds his life will lose it. And he who loses his life for my sake will find it. So it wasn't until David was busy trying to live the life. He was trying to find himself, right? He was trying to find the lifestyle in Philistine. And you know what would end up happening? He ended up losing everything, bro. He loses everything, bro. This in a literal sense. He loses his wife, all his possessions, bro. And it wasn't until he cut all that out and said, give me that ephod. Let me pray to God, bro. Let me stop all this macho stuff that I was doing. It wasn't until he lose everything, bro. He dropped everything and prayed to God that he was able to find his life, bro. He was able to find his possessions. He was able to find his wives. He he was, you can't forget, he had more than one, but
More than one.
he was able to find his purpose again.
Bang, that's what I was going to say. Yep, his true purpose.
His true purpose. So now, instead of me saying I ramsacking and raiding all of these places, I'm making the ties that a king should be making. I establishing relationships and I building the confidence and trust with my army and my people and the people of Judah. You understand what I'm saying? And so quite literally, he who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake will find it. The Philistine princes refused to let David and his army fight for Philistia. But while David was trying to protect the Philistines, his own town was left unprotected. Tensions arose between David and his men, but God restored everything and everyone that were taken away. But while David restored his possessions, Saul, on the other hand, is about to lose his most valuable possession. But we'll talk more about that on the next episode of A Breath of Fresh Air. Tonight's episode included voice acting by your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz. Remember to go ahead and research on your own in order to get a more firm understanding of tonight's episode. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. You can follow us on social media at A Breath of Fresh Air Pod on Instagram and BOFAPOD on Twitter. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next week.